the things about using light journal paper is that you never know how something's going to react on it. So I always tend to try to do a test run on some regular copy photo paper, not photo paper, you know, printer paper, to make sure that what I want to do is going to work and that it won't bleed through the paper. And I find that most composition notebooks, artist loft journals, things like that tend to all kind of have the same paper thickness quality as just basic printer paper, so I use it as my tester. My pages have been sprayed with the matte finish because that's how I protect my journaling on the back page, because I don't skip pages. And so this is me just trying out something that was a total fail, so I'm not even going to explain it. You can kind of watch it, but that's the point of this video, is to if you're not sure something's going to work and you're not skipping pages in your lightweight journals, this is a good way to figure out if your idea is going to fly, because unlike an art journal, you can't just keep layering and fixing and layering and fixing. It just doesn't work. The paper won't hold up and you have a hard time writing over it. So in general, I try to work my ideas out on paper. Okay, so here is, that one was a flop. It didn't work. I'm using the Lyra crayons. This piece of paper is not been treated with the matte spray. It is a plain piece of paper. I'm just showing you what it does. I don't use plain without it sprayed because I don't want my journaling on the back of the page to move when I use water on my pages, so that's why I spray. It's not really to stop bleed through. It's mostly to keep my journal from bleeding all over. But this one is been sprayed with the matte spray, and so I'm trying different ways of wiping the Lyra colors that I've scribbled onto the paper with a baby wipe. That looks alright, but I think I want my colors to stand out, so I'm trying to go this way. Again, this is the plain sheet of paper. This is the one with the spray on it. And the one with the spray on it, you have to work a little bit more because it will just pick the color off the sprayed paper if you push too hard. On the flip note, the plain paper, it soaks right into the paper. And you'll see here in a bit when I flip them over how it just soaks right in. So what I did is I'm testing it out. So I'm going to dry everything, because you have to dry everything in stages. Lots and lots of drying if you saw my last video. But here's the back of the sprayed one. Nothing bleeding through, no water, nothing. And so it works really well. This is the back of the plain one, and you can see the actual liquid moisture coming through the paper. And if you had journaling on this side, it would now be spread all over the place unless it was a waterproof pen. So I want to, this kind of paper curls really bad. Your journal paper won't curl as bad. So I went over and straightened it against a flat edge of my desk. Again, the top one is my sprayed one. So I'm going to do a second layer of color to see if I can brighten up the colors a little bit and if it'll bleed through, if I can, you know, how much can I play with this. Again, this is the one that's not treated. And lost my train of thought. Anyways, back to the baby wipe, wipe. You can be kind of rough on it, but you can tell that this is a second layer and you get a little bit more color. Again, the sprayed pages, you have to be careful because it'll pick the color up off of the paper if you're not careful with a baby wipe. It doesn't do it with a brush. This is the plain paper. And the colors are brighter and more intense on the plain paper, but as you can tell, look how much it soaks through. If you had journaling again, it would be a bloody mess. So dry, some more drying. I'm not really sure why I dried it, mostly to see what would happen, but you can't really tell the colors until it's fully dry. And I'm working under terrible lights because it was dark, so yeah. Go with that. Anyways, that's the difference between plain and sprayed, and I liked it. So here we are in my fauxbonichi journal. It's an artist loft journal that I picked up from Michael's, and we're going to kind of do this a little bit in more real time. So you can kind of see the drying time that I use. I first sprayed this with the matte spray finish from Crayons. I do this outside. If you use this spray, please don't use it in your house. It's nasty stuff, but it works like a charm. I did add another color to this, a little bit of an aqua teal color. But you I wasn't quite sure how much color to put down, and you'll see when I move to the second page I got a lot more braver. But these are not doubled pages. My journaling is right on the next side, so if you add a lot of water to it without the spray, it's going to move my journaling around because I use an Inktense pencil. But you can see here that it just blends out just beautifully, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I love the Lyra crayons for something like this. They just are so smooth and buttery, and it doesn't take very much water to move them, where a lot of watercolors you have to add a lot of water to get them to move on the page, which just doesn't work when you're using really thin journaling paper. And I don't know how many of you use the Artist Loft journals, but they're $5. They're not expensive, and so the quality of the paper is not watercolor paper. So I wanted to add a little bit more color in some of these different areas. That little light blue just didn't want to show up, so I'm just scribbling on some more color, and then I'm just wiping it down. And again, don't press hard if you're using it sprayed on sprayed paper, because if I keep rubbing this, it won't bleed through. I'll just wipe it all off. It doesn't waterproof your paper, but it does give it this background coating. And then, as you can tell, I dry between all the layers. Don't keep adding layers until you have dried in between, or it will eventually break down the matte spray. And yeah, but that's about how long it takes to dry. Everybody's always like, oh, it must take forever. No, it takes just seconds. The Lyra crayons dry incredibly fast. Here's another tip on this. I printed the Wednesday-December on clear sticker paper, and it is just ink, which, you know, if water is in the vicinity of that, it will bleed everywhere, and you're about to see that it doesn't move after you spray. That's another reason that I like to use the matte spray on pages that I'm going to do this kind of water technique, or smushing, or using your distressings, anything that's going to move stuff around. And as you can tell, nothing bled, nothing moved, and it kept my sticker from turning into a mess. And it'll do that for pretty much any kind of stickers that are, you know, like you get paper stickers and stuff like that that are not waterproof-ish. And this page blended a lot better than the other page, because I had previously on the back side used glue and scrapbook paper to adhere my decorations, and so as you can tell, there's nothing bleeding through, there's very little warping. That's the paper I glued on, so it held color differently than the other side, and it wrinkled differently than the other side. So, but it, you know, you can tell it worked. But that's basically all that there is to it. I recommend the spray, and as you can tell, Lyra crayons kind of, once they're dry, they set really good. They're very easy to write over with any kind of pen. They leave a very thin pigment, and I just really, really like how they work on the papers. They're not a cheap set of watercolor crayons, but I do recommend that you get the 48 set, simply because it has the most colors and the most options, and it's worth every penny if you use a thin paper journal. These also rarely bleed through if you don't spray your page. I think you'll really enjoy them. But anyways, that's my page. I'm gonna go put my book under bondage, which is what I do when I use watercolors and stuff, is just press it. And as you can tell, nothing bled through, nothing moved. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I'll see you in the next one. If you have any suggestions, leave them down below. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.